welcome to another edition of the Public Interest. My name is David Granger, and on this series of programs, we have examined issues of interest to the general public, both at home and in the diaspora. And today, I would like to deal with a very important topic which concerns every Guyanese, and that is to see the quality of life. I had the honor 5 years ago to announce, to declare Guyana a petroleum state. 5 years have passed, and although I planted the tree, I wasn't in a position to reap the fruit. But since that time, for the last 50 months, the People's Progressive Party administration has been in office, and we have seen very little improvement in the quality of life. There's been a lot of money spent. Um, we've had big budgets. I think it's the envy of any president in the Caribbean to have the sort of budget we enjoy now. But why are we languishing? Why are our people languishing with a low quality of life? I don't say this, out of any hostility to the administration. The United Nations Development Program publishes a Human Development Index, the HDI, and that the most recent HDI ranked Guyana in 95th place. 95th, yes. Don't worry about all the bridges and the buildings going up and the highways and the contracts. Guyana is ranked 95th in terms of quality of life. We are behind CARICOM states, most CARICOM states. We're behind St. Kitts and Nevis, which is ranked 51st. We're behind Antigua and Barbuda, which is ranked 54th. We're behind the Bahamas, which is ranked 57th. We're behind Trinidad and Tobago, which is ranked 60th. We're behind Barbados, which is ranked 62nd. We're behind Grenada, which is ranked 73rd. We're even behind St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is ranked 81st. And some of these countries have been smashed by hurricanes, but they still enjoy a higher quality of life. What's going on? Are you happy as Guyanese? Do you enjoy a high quality of life? What do we mean by quality of life anyway? By quality of life, we mean that we are assessing, we're measuring citizens' personal values and the life experience. We're measuring their happiness. The HDI, the Human Development Index, emphasizes that people and their capabilities should be the ultimate criteria for assessing a country's development. Not economic growth alone, but people's happiness is a useful yardstick to measure a country's development. That is people's development. Citizens are usually uncomfortable, and Guyanese citizens are uncomfortable when there's a high incidence of crime, when there's a high incidence of incivility by public officials, the way they treat teachers and people going for the old age pensions and the cash grants. A high incidence of insecurity, a high incidence of political instability, a high incidence of insanitary surroundings. All of these contribute to lowering the quality of life. My friends, the HDI is not necessarily a sort of without flaws, because it's people's perceptions. But it is a good guide to determining what your quality of life is. And this is what we want to discuss today. It emphasizes education, it emphasizes health and public services within this physical space we call Guyana. Education and health are the two most important measures of human happiness. Countries which possess well-constructed hospitals, staffed by dedicated doctors, caring nurses, competent technicians. Countries which have schools, which are well-equipped with dormitories. Dormitories, yes, you're thinking of Madia. Well-equipped with laboratories so that students could pursue the goal of being scientists, STEM. Well-equipped with libraries, the electronic and digital libraries. well equipped laboratories. I think those of you listening to this program might have heard about the insanitary lavatories that some of our children in the hinterland have to face on a daily basis. When we think of all of these, when you go to a school compound, you see some open uh, water dispenser. You think it might be a pig's trough, but this is where our school children are expected to drink their water out in the open. Indoor toilet. These are things which determine your quality of life. Um, Look at where the schools are constructed. Are there any playgrounds? Where do they exercise? Do they have gymnasiums? Where do they hold their sports? Um, Once these schools are properly built, in safe areas, and they are staffed with trained teachers who manage these institutions efficiently, you can start to think about children enjoying a high quality of life. And think about these things when you decide and determine whether Guyanese have a high quality of life. You start to understand why we are 95th in the world, behind half of the CARICOM states. When you see a country that is marked by alienation, by capital flight, which means people are spending their money overseas, they're building or buying condos in Florida rather than here in Guyana. High rates of immigration. Then don't forget, Guyana's rate of immigration is one of the highest, especially for skilled persons, one of the highest in the world. And I've told you before on this program, my surprise to be greeted at a primary school in the Bahamas, which was staffed with a primary school, which was staffed with 2 dozen Guyanese migrant teachers, all university graduates. And the rate of immigration of university of graduates is about 89%, is one of the highest in the world. And when you see people reluctant to invest their money and to acquire property, you can see that it leads to other factors such as a diminished participation in the political process and the social process. These are all symptoms of a low quality of life when people are migrating from this so-called petroleum state. My friends, physical infrastructure alone does not equate to human development. Big budgets do not necessarily equate to comfortable and safe lives. And this is where Guyana is today. Every year, the United States Department of State reports on human rights. Every year, the United States the Department of Labor reports. And what do these reports say? I'm not saying these reports are infallible, but they're a good guide. Year after year, the United States Department of State reports on the PPP administration's performance. Up to the most recent report, we see that the, the actual abuse or violation of human rights has been highlighted. There are credible reports of arbitrary or unlawful extrajudicial killings and detention, extensive gender based violence, including domestic or intimate partner violence, sexual violence, and the existence of the worst forms of child labor. These are not my words, these are words of the United States Department of State's Human Rights Report. The US Department of Labor has reported on child labor, and although it notes Guyana's minimal advancement to eradicate the worst forms of child labor, we still know that children are enduring, especially young girls in the hinterland. Some of them are the victims of trafficking, and it's a worse form of exploitation because these are girls. Well, if they are girls, they're under the age of 18, who have been trafficked for sexual purposes, sexual exploitation. Uh, and we have not really solved the problem of hinterland human trafficking. And many young people are still employed in dangerous mining in places which are not supervised by proper mine officers. So the human rights violations tend to lower the quality of life for large sections of our population, especially those living in the hinterland. And then we look at governance. Guyana scored 40 out of 100 points on the corruption perception index. Again, this is not an infallible yardstick to measure corruption, but if your child came home from school, got 40 marks out of 100, um, to use expression that old people like to use, you attend to his memory, you give him something to remember. I'm not saying that you should punish him harshly, but that 40% needs to be corrected. That is the level of corruption perception in Guyana, that we scored 40 out of 100%. Yes, there are inefficiencies in the criminal justice system, there's economic hardship, there are institutional weaknesses, but these things have to be corrected because they foster corruption. We might have laws and institutions on the books, but the enforcement has been inadequate. And there might be deficiencies in implementation owing to lack of capacity, lack of trained staff, but it's been going on a long time. And we need to ensure that they are corrected if we're to have a higher quality of life. People are not going to come into the country to invest if they feel they have to pay bribes to state officials or to law enforcement officers. And that is the problem. A lot of people are running from the country. And perhaps even though we're attracting some investment, people are investing in extractive industries. They're putting in because they can take out. They're not putting in to make the country better. They make the quality of life any better. My friends, we come to the question of public trust. These problems in governance affect or indicate the lack of trust the foreigners, particularly even local people, have in the government. Public services involve public trust. And public trust is important to your quality of life. If citizens cannot trust public servants to do their jobs with integrity, with impartiality, with reliability, we have a serious problem. And if there's no trust in government, there will be very little trust in the development of the country, in the development of the government, in the perception, ability of the government to run the country efficiently. Cost of living is an important factor because that reflects the amount of money that citizens are required to pay for basic necessities. That's what we use to judge cost of living. When you consider the price of consumer goods and services, we then decide whether the cost of living is bearable, because people need basic necessities. They have to pay rent, they have to buy food, they have to buy groceries, they want transportation to get to work, they have to pay for utilities, using the telephones and electricity and water. These determine not only cost of living, they also determine the quality of life. Within any given area, these factors will determine whether people are living comfortable and happy lives or they're under pressure, they're under stress, they feel oppressed. I have looked at 10 factors. You may have your own way of assessing people's quality of life, but I have selected 10 factors. I think the most important factor in measuring a person's quality of life is education. And I think people who are not educated would have a great difficulty in having a comfortable life in Guyana today. That is why my administration put emphasis on access to education, achievement in education. and availability of education to people all over the country, children all over the country. So the first criterion is access to affordable nursery, primary, secondary, university education. We've now reached a platform in which all levels of education are free. The government has finally accepted its obligation for free education, literally from nursery to university. And we are moving ahead in that regard. Second criterion is employment. That is, yes, it's good to give people buckets and brooms and tell them to sweep the highways. We've seen them. But no mother wants that for her son and daughter. And we're looking for availability of safe, secure employment with acceptable levels of dignity and also of remuneration. Commensurate, of course, with the qualification. That's why education is important. Um, the third is the environment. And this is characterized in terms of the quality of life by living in an environment without air, water, and soil pollution. And this is or coastal erosion. This is not true for many people in hinterland and riverine areas. We're looking for life in an area that is sanitary. Solid waste management is under control, and we don't go into our towns and markets and our cities and see garbage, uncollected garbage for days and days. Of course, they breed a lot of vermin. We're looking for green spaces. We mustn't feel that we have to, you know, put the erect buildings in every pasture. We need space to breathe. We need parks. Um, and of course, everyone knows that Guyana, we may not have earthquakes, we may not have volcanoes, but every year, May, June, without fail, we have flooding. Without fail. The May, June rains never fail. And for some strange reason, we've had the worst floods in recent memory on the two PPP governments in 2005 and 2021. Um, in fact, the president of the country said the 2021 flood was the worst in Guyanese history. Well, we need to protect our environment to have a good quality of life. And if you heard the stories, if you paid attention to the stories of the victims of those floods, 2005 and 2021, you'll see that the quality of life is under threat. Another criterion, of course, is your leisure, your recreation, your entertainment. And, you know, too much work makes Jack a dull boy. Well, we need entertainment and we need quality entertainment. Nobody wants to go to these, botheration, fets and so on, where there's some shooting or vulgarity. People want to have access to respectable entertainment, music, drama, dance, and so on. And sport. Uh, it's a pity to see some schools without any sport fields, without any sport facilities. And that is something we need to bear in mind, that we need to mainstream sport into public education. Another factor is immigration. Well, you know, you cannot say that your country enjoys a high quality of life if 89% of your university graduates are rushing to go to Barbados or Bahamas or Belize. It used to be Botswana, the four Bs. But the immigration rate is intolerable. And that is because the quality of life for many of those graduates is intolerable. It's a push factor. They're running away. Nobody run away from a good thing. They're running away because there are difficulties. And when you see the way the PPP administration treats the teachers union and treats the public service union, you could understand why people are running away from a government that has no or very little respect for the unions which represent them. So immigration is a big problem. And every year, not only you're looking at the removal of 89% of your graduates from the nation, but you're also looking at the fact that every month, you know, about 18 nurses are leaving the public health system. And if you look at all of the rates of migration over the last 4 years and the way the government treats the unions that represent those nurses, you could start to understand why nurses are running away from Guyana. And all of these factors contribute to lowering the quality of life. Then there's the question of food security. Frankly, I've dealt, this issue several times before. But when you have housewives who prefer to buy imported apples, not prefer, can only afford to buy imported to give their children some fruit because imported fruit are either in short supply or they're too expensive. Children should be enjoying. Children should be enjoying, mangoes and sapodillas and star apples and papaws. Not rushing to buy foreign apples. But this is the situation. Guyana is not food secure, and no point talking about growing roses, cut roses, and growing hemp when you cannot give your children fresh fruit every day. Uh, uh, these are necessities for enjoying a good and healthy life. The question of housing, yes, there has been significant progress in housing, but affordable housing, in fact, some people, although they can afford the housing, have not been so eager to pick up lots. Some of the lots are, very, very close together and very little concern about, space, kitchen gardens, recreation. Um, when you pass some of those areas, you could, you know, hear what is in your neighbor's bedroom. They're very close together, and people are looking for not only for affordable housing, but people are looking for housing that could, become the homes of their families, and try to improve their quality of life. Then there's the question of human safety. Well, many people are concerned about safety. Personal safety is measured by the level of violent crimes in the country, on the coastline and in the hinterland. And crimes including armed robbery and murder are very serious crimes, and some people are not taking this seriously. Every week, 5 women are raped in Guyana. This is not a mark of a high quality of life. The population of over just about 750,000. Every month, at least two persons are murdered. Every week, two persons are murdered in this country. So things are not getting better. There's no point declassifying some of these serious crimes as not serious crime. Rape is a serious crime. Murder is a serious crime, both at the coastline and the hinterland. And of course, you have problems with public transportation. This is a headache. I think some people prefer to walk than to go into one of these minibuses. Some of them, it is quite clear that Guyana does not have a safe public transport system. And the chaotic, you know, traffic situation on our roads and highways, unreliable, unsafe minibuses, has not really been brought under control. Guyana's road death statistics is one of the highest in Latin America and the Caribbean. And there is no way of trying to claim, with all the respect we may have for the law enforcement agencies, over the last 50 months, there's no way we can say we can be satisfied that the road deaths situation has been improved. It is dangerous. And we've had some comments from even diplomats about the chaos on the streets. And of course, the question of public health. We've come out of the COVID epidemic, yes, but vector-borne diseases still pose a serious problem. Dengue, filaria, malaria still plague the country. Maternal deaths also have increased. In 2020, there were 13 deaths in 1 year. 2021, there are 15 deaths. In 2022, 17 deaths. So the numbers continue to increase. So mothers, young mothers or pregnant women going to hospitals still are not confident in delivering a live baby or getting out of hospital alive, which is a tragedy. All of these factors, 10 factors I've mentioned, and lower the quality of life. So where are we? Are we a happy people? Are we approaching a more stable environment for all of the citizens of the country? Are we happy with being 95th in the world in terms of quality of life? Well, as we face the prospects of a new year and new elections, we must consider quality of life as a very important criterion for determining, the future of this country. Yes, it is a subjective measure, and many people will not agree with what I said or what the United Nations have said about the quality of life in Guyana. But citizens themselves must determine whether they are satisfied, whether they're happy, and they feel that more could be done in the cultural, economic, social, and political environment to bring about a higher quality of life, higher standard of living. It is personal, yes, and the personal perception is important. Am I happy in this country? Do I feel independent? Do I feel free? Do I have the sort of social support that I need? Do I have the health and the physical and to contribute to my physical and material well-being? Do I have cordial relations with other persons, not only my family, but with my workplace? And do I participate? Am I happy to participate in community and civic activities, and which satisfy my needs for recreation and leisure and my self-development? Citizens' feeling of satisfaction and safety are determined only in part by physical infrastructure. Yes, we need the bridges and we need the better highways, but bridges and buildings alone cannot guarantee citizen satisfaction when they live in the middle of fear of being choked and robbed, of being struck down by some drunken driver, being discriminated against, or being treated unequally or unfairly in the courts or by agents of the state. Citizens will find it difficult to achieve a significantly satisfying quality of life in the short term at the rate Guyana is going now. Conditions are still not being created for real human improvement. Much more needs to be done, particularly by the state, by the municipalities, by the private sector, by civil society, to enhance the quality of life and to give citizens in the coastline and in the hinterland that feeling of satisfaction. The state still needs to foster cordial relations with civil society, with trade unions, who are legitimate representatives of the workers, and with the media. The state still needs to desist from rancorous rants, caustic criticism of civil society. And it must start to insist on its own good governance. It must start to insist on poverty eradication. It must start to insist on social cohesion. These would contribute measurably to providing a good life for everyone in the new year. Thank you, and may God bless you.
together.